Hi folks, how are you doing? My name is Janice. I am the UK Redbreast Whiskey Ambassador, and we're here doing a wonderful festive collaboration with the lovely folks at Bread Ahead Bakery. So why Redbreast and mince pies? Well folks, Redbreast 12 is an Irish single pot still whiskey, the quintessential traditional way of making Irish whiskey, and it is packed full of these wonderful Christmassy notes. I know the word Christmassy is not a real word, but we're going to use it. What I'm talking about is that beautiful baking spices, dried fruits, nuts, figs, and all of those lovely Christmas mince pie in a glass notes. So we're going to be making some mince pies with the lovely Redbreast 12 in with it. So Redbreast 12 is a triple distilled single pot still Irish whiskey. So when we're talking single pot still, we're talking malted and unmalted barley, triple distilled through those beautiful copper pot stills. What you're going to get is this beautiful mouth coating texture, that little bit of spice. It's nearly buttery like in texture, so referring back to that mince pie in a glass flavor. When you nose this, the first thing that you get, a little bit of oakiness, but you get those lovely baking spices coming through. And a little sip, sláinte. That beautiful dried fruits, the nuts, the figs, those Christmas spices all coming through, and that lovely mouth-coating texture and spice. So Redbreast 12 really is the perfect choice for your Christmas dram and the perfect accompaniment to your Christmas baking as well. I'm now going to hand you over to the wonderful Ope, and she's going to show you how to make some mince pies.
Hello everyone, my name is Ope. I'm one of the teachers at the Bread Ahead Baking School. So we're going to start off by making our mince pie filling. Our mince pie filling is made using chopped apples, raisins, sultanas, and currants, all in equal proportions. And we will also be adding 125 grams of dark brown sugar to this. You will also need 35 grams of chopped almonds or flaked almonds, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1.5 teaspoons of mixed spice. And we need some demerara sugar, but that will be a little bit later in class. And of course, we will be flavoring this with our Redbreast Irish whiskey. So the flavors are very similar to everything we're using in class today. It's got notes of raisins, prunes, figs, coffee, and all of this will enhance the flavor of our mince pie filling. So if you're ready, I'm ready, we'll get started. So you will need a whole orange, zest, and juice. We'll also need the zest of 1 lemon and the juice, and we're just going to grate this into an oven dish. Or oven tray. Any dip pan that you have will suffice for this. So when you're grating the orange, you're being really careful just to grate the zest and not get beyond that. This is the pith, and it can be quite bitter. So all we need is the zest. You can freeze your oranges. You can also freeze your lemons. Any citrus fruits that you freeze for about a week becomes sweet. Everything becomes sweet. So the zest, the pith, the seeds, everything becomes sweet. And that is what I do. I freeze the whole fruit, and you can grate through the entire thing. So there's no wastage. So for a recipe like this that calls for the zest of 1 orange and the juice, you just grate half an orange and half a lemon. When you put whatever is left back into the freezer. So it stops you wasting things and being overly careful not to get to the pith. So once you're done grating, always check the back of the zester. We always have quite a bit of zest lingering at the back. Okay, so orange zested. You need to get the juices out. So for this one, you rub your orange on the bench. It softens it up, and you get a lot more juice when you do it this way. Same thing with the lemon. Always make sure you rub it on the bench or tap it on the bench. It softens it up. And you get almost double the quantity of the juice you would otherwise have gotten. Okay, so the mince pies is very hard to think of Christmas without this traditional British delight. Created, I think, about the 16th century, the first records that they have for mince pies, and originally they were made with meat, beef, sweetened with sugar and spices. But around the 18th century, I think it was, they started using raisins and currants, and initially they were flavored with wine and vinegar. And about the 19th century, we started using distilled spirits for this. And that is where the Irish whiskey comes into play. It plays a huge part in our recipe today because it does give it a nice aroma, but more than the aroma, it enhances the flavor because we will allow this to develop over a few hours, and the longer you leave it for, of course, the more intensive the flavor becomes. So it gives it this nice distinct flavor. For me, personally, I like the fact that it acts as a preservative. So it will give it a longer shelf life. And I don't just use it for mincemeat. Wedding cakes, this is my go-to. So you can soak your raisins, your fruits, your sultanas in whiskey. And it just, they're like, what do I call it? Rice, white on rice. There's this love affair going on between dried fruits and the whiskey. It soaks it up. And every few days you just go back, top it up. And by the time you're ready to bake that wedding cake, it will be nice, soft, plump, very juicy. Once the cakes have been baked, you can also brush it with whiskey and keep brushing it, and it can last forever. And I really do mean that, it can last forever. But for Christmas, for our mince pies, we don't want those to last forever. These we are going to gobble up before the end of the Christmas season. Okay. So seedless orange, I will take the pulp out. Check my lemon. So this is day one. You will weigh out all your ingredients. I said earlier 125 grams of currants, raisins, and sultanas. You will weigh out your dark brown sugar, 125 grams, and you'll be using chopped apples for this, also 125 grams. I have left the skin on my apples. Don't bother peeling the apples. Lots and lots of fiber and vitamins on the skin, so no need to peel that. So you dice your apples, you chop your almonds, and we're going to mix everything together. So very easy to make, or easy enough. And we will leave this in the fridge. Leave it in the fridge overnight. And then on day 2, or the following morning, we'll pop it into the oven. So it takes about an hour to cook in the oven. You can do it in the hob, but it's easier in the oven. You don't have to watch it or stir it quite as often. So I have my juice of 1 orange, juice of 1 lemon, and the zest. Apples have gone in. I have already weighed out my currants, my sultanas, and my raisins, all going in here, and you stir. Bring everything together. Then we'll add our sugar, our chopped almonds, spices, and the final ingredient going in there is our suet. So we are using beef suet. You can use vegetable suet. You can use shortening for this if that is what you have on hand. Dark brown sugar. And it is already smelling like Christmas. Spices going in. Chopped almonds have gone in. We stir. Sweet going in last, and we'll cover this and leave it in the fridge overnight before we cook. We're going to add the whiskey in later. If we add it in at this stage or at this, before it goes into the oven, we will evaporate all the alcohol, and that is not the intention at all. Okay, so we will be adding it in later rather than earlier. So all the diced apples have been coated. And this is what it's looking like right now. Sweet going in. We stir. Make sure you have a well combined mix, and done. So of course you can get it into the oven at this point and start to cook, but we like doing this as a slow process. All the flavors, all the currants, raisins and sultanas will get infused with the juices from the lemon and the oranges. Okay, so this is it. We'll cover this, pop it into the fridge, and when we come back, we're going to get it into the oven to cook. So after resting in the fridge overnight, you will stir. Okay, making sure everything is well coated. You will have your oven on 120 degrees centigrade. We're using a fan oven. If you're using a conventional oven, you will want to set it at 140 degrees. This is going to need an hour to cook. So you stir. My oven is already on, preheated. I can see 120, so I'm just going to set the timer. 1 hour. Every 20 minutes, you will have to open the oven and then stir the mixture. Okay, so that we don't get some sections cooking faster than the others. And we stir. You can leave this covered with either foil paper or your parchment paper. It stops the currants and the raisins from drying out. Pop that on, and this goes into the oven. Okay, so every 20 minutes, we'll go back, stir, cover, go back, stir. And once it's done, we bring it out of the oven, we will leave it. You will need to leave it to cool for about 20 minutes before adding your Irish whiskey in there. Add it in too early because the sauce is still quite hot. It will affect the quality of the alcohol you are putting in there. So let it cool slightly, and then we add our Irish whiskey in there. We stir, leave it to cool completely, and that is what we are going to use to fill our delicious mince pies. Okay, so our mince meat has been in the oven for over an hour. We have been going back and forth, stirring it intermittently. We've got about 14 seconds to go, so I'm going to get it out of the oven, give it its final stir, and we'll leave it on the side to cool down before we add our whiskey. So 4 seconds. Okay, and that is our beep. So we take the parchment paper or the cover off, and this is what it looks like. It is still bubbling very nicely. It smells amazing in here, and we stir. So look at that, nice, soft already, and plump. And we'll leave it to cool. So you can add the whiskey later, I was saying rather than earlier. The later you leave it, the more alcoholic content you're having there, and the longer your mincemeat will keep for. So if you want to keep it for a very long time, allow it to cool completely. But minimum, we'd say between 15 to 20 minutes cooling time, and then our whiskey goes in here. We mix and we allow it to cool completely before we'll fill the pie cases. Alternately, leave it to cool overnight, and then the following day, whiskey goes in, you stir, you get a lot more flavor in there, a more intensive flavor packed, full of lovely aromas in there if you leave it to cool completely. So that is my go-to. I leave it to cool completely and then I add my whiskey in there. Also, another thing to note is you don't have to cook it in the oven if you're using it to make cakes. You just get your whiskey, your fruits, you soak and use as you like. For this one, once you've added the whiskey in there, you don't have to fill your pie cases with this. You can just get a spoon, a side plate, a nice serving of mincemeat, and you're good to go. Nice cup of coffee, and honestly, it's one of the best things you will be eating this Christmas. Okay, so our mincemeat out of the oven has had its time to cool, and now we are going to add our Redbreast 12. So I was saying earlier that it's a marriage made in heaven. They've got the same flavor notes, raisins, prunes, we've got some fig notes coming through, coffee notes, malt extract, and it just pairs beautifully with our mincemeat. So you will need about 75 grams. You can go up to 125 if you like, but 75 grams minimum will do the trick. So I've popped my bowl on the scale, and here I go. So I will stay somewhere in between at 100 grams. So 100 grams, 100 ml. Grams and ml give you the same weight. It's just that scientifically we use ml for liquids and grams for dry. In baking, we just use grams for everything. So we stir. And you want to make sure everything is well coated with the whiskey. And I'm using the back of the spoon to press the fruits into the whiskey. So a nice homogeneous mix like that. So this is what you have. And it's not just for mince pies. You can use this as a cookie filling. As I was saying earlier, this is my go-to for making wedding cakes, and I have a lot of happy brides to back up this recipe. You can use them for cinnamon buns as well, so very versatile, this mince pie filling that we are making today. You can use it for so many things. And the beauty lies in the shelf life. Okay, by adding this whiskey, you have prolonged the shelf life. If you put it in a glass jar, it can last for a year, and all you have to keep doing is topping it up. Because of course it will mop up all of the whiskey we've added in here. If you're keeping it for longer than 3 months, I would add a lot more whiskey than I have done in class today, so maybe double the quantity, and you just keep checking up on it and topping it up, and it is absolutely loving every top up that you give it. And it will keep all the currants nice, soft, plump, moist, juicy, and delicious for your bakes. So this is what we have here. Okay, so we will now move on to making our mince pies.